right, we're live. Welcome to From Katrina to Corona, Poor People Solutions versus Government Solutions to COVID-19 and the Virus of Poverty. A special Zoom series sponsored by Poor People Revolutionary Radio and Poor People Radio broadcast live Tuesdays 6 until 9 PST and Thursday 4 until 7 on poormagazine.org/radio or online on dial in Oakland at 96.1 FM. All of these Zoom broadcasts are available at PoorNewsNetwork channel on YouTube and poormagazine.org/TV. I am the Black Crippled. Who's this?
Anti-social workers and case manglers call me crazy, lazy, dumb, and a bum. Because my knowledge, my resources don't come from the institution. Yeah, this is welcome to PNN, not CNN, people. We know what the people did to CNN lately. That part. Yeah, this is Poor People's Radio, and on this series, Katrina to Corona, we're focusing on the systemic racist classist ways that this white supremacist system that we live in the United Snakes of Americland responds to a emergency, i.e. military lies and placation, and how us poor and indigenous peoples in reality have our own solutions, which we are already enacting and have been for years of self-determination. Shouts out to Elder Malik Rahim from Common Ground, Kilu Niasha, all of our powerful Black Panthers from the Bay Area and beyond, and of course our powerful warriors from the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, which we're so blessed to have today. So to focus on this ongoing terror and resistance of our times, we always begin with a little medicine, first of all, of prayer. This is a non-secular prayer. This is a prayer to ancestors and to Mama Earth for the land that we are humbly standing on and broadcasting from. So out here in the Bay Area, this is occupied Ohlone Lechon area territory. We're in the occupied village of Ochin, which is Oakland. And we have guests who are reporting in from all over the United Snakes tonight, specifically from Philadelphia, where the Powerful Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign is based, although there are many branches, which is occupied Lenape territory. So shouts out to these ancestors and to all of our Black and brown and poor people who die on these streets every day because of the lie of scarcity and America-KKK. Ashe, Aho, Omateo. And big extra love, of course, to our brothers and sisters who died from the pandemic called Police Terror that we as poor people know was here a long time before folks just got woke. But all that to say, tonight we are focusing on Philanthro Pimping, the savior industrial complex, non-profiteering, and the silencing and stealing and sabotaging that happens to a lot of the most powerful liberation movements, which of course is very important medicine for this time when a lot of folks, again, are just waking up to what us poverty scholars been knowing for a minute, and are launching new movements right and left, but not realizing that there's hungry snakes waiting to opt those movements. So to ground us in this powerful discussion tonight and this lesson, which is what it is, we'll hear a short excerpt from powerful Elder Malik Rahim of Common Ground to ground us.
Is that I was a part of Common Ground, and we never received no assistance from the city, state, or federal government. Right now, we have been wiped out the history of Common Ground or of Katrina. We have never been invited to anything. The city have never acknowledged that we even exist, you know, and it's only because of the fact that I founded Common Ground as being a member of the Black Panther Party, you know, and the tactics that we use, and all in the aftermath of Katrina was the tactics that I learned as a member of the Black Panther Party.
That's right.
So they will not allow that to happen.
That's right.
You got to remember now, in the aftermath of Katrina, this government took one of the most despicable person to ever exist in our lifetime. And this is a person by the name of Brandon Darby, who was a paid informer and provocateur. They used him to destroy this organization. You know, an organization that wasn't out to overthrow no government.
Of course not.
An organization that wasn't out to do nothing other than help people in the aftermath of the greatest disaster to hit the soil of this country and over this country's history.
That's right.
That's all we was trying to do. And they put a despicable person like him in it to destroy that organization. Right now, I'm fighting to save my house.
So that was part 3 of a 4-part discussion with Malik Rahim, which you can access on PoorNewsNetwork YouTube channel. So tonight we look at the connection between so-called charity industry and our movements, something POOR has worked extensively on since 2010. When we began People's School in writing what would eventually become the Poverty Scholarship book. Poor people led fairy art, words, and tears across Mama Earth. So that's the cover of the book. Tiny.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the passage, and we're just going to read this briefly. This is a chat of chapter 10, again, just to ground us in this important discussion tonight, because this is a lesson. You know, philanthropy, as it's known, of course, you know, I remix it to Philanthro Pimping, is rooted in Eurocentric Western values of capitalism. These values directly impact the programming decisions and priorities of organizations, transforming agendas of well-meaning and sometimes revolutionary organizations rooted in poor communities of color into programs that harm indigenous, multi-generational caregiving communities. For example, there are organizations that create youth-only programming for indigenous youth whose cultures value eldership and family, and funding guidelines or narrow thinking promote delinking of naturally linked crisis movements, such as an organization working for tenants' rights and an organization advocating for houseless families. In another internalization of capitalist values, nonprofit organizations are forced to pursue funding based on that year's sexy initiatives, and they do use that word.
So to get into tonight's conversation, we are honored to invite revolutionary comrades, members of the Poor People's Army, fellow poverty scholars, and founders of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. Cheri Honkala, Galen Taylor, Tara Colin, and Liz Ortaz, and Lisa Richard.
As well as Refuge Ministries and Florida chapter of Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, Bruce Wright.
Yeah, Bruce.
And some of our other powerful guests from Poor Magazine here as well, Pearl Ubungan and Israel Munoz. But let's start by hearing the powerful Cheri or Galen, whoever would like to speak first, and just kind of maybe outline what happened with the foundations. Tell us what happened. Tell us what you'd like to have people hear.
Mr. Tyler.
Want to start, Mr. Galen?
I'll just go first, Galen. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Cheri.
Go ahead, Galen.
Oh, you want me to start? You know, we're talking in relationship to like government, you know what I mean, solutions versus to you know, people on the ground, people that are, you know what I mean, deeply affected, you know what I mean, by, you know, many different ills. And so when you think about like how things have gone and how things have progressed, I look back at our current situation and how the things that we went through being naive, you know what I mean, in so many different ways in relationship to people coming, trying to support what we're trying to do. And, you know, all the way back that I can remember, it was always, you know what I mean, to support us, to kind of gear us to go in another direction. Money, resources, and stuff like that that was given, you know what I mean, was always used us to bog us down into programs and number of other different things that take us away from the actual organizing and having us really neat people, you know what I mean, out there that are going through some of the exact same thing most of us on the call are going through. And so our solution has never been, you know, thinking that the foundations or, you know, the big funders were going to help build this movement, but we never really took in consideration how evil they were in relation to trying to, you know, derail or debunk or stop or hinder, you know what I mean, the growth of the movement. We thought they had different ways of looking at it, but, and actually, you know, they're not trying to get the same prize that we're trying to get. You know what I mean? They're really in the business of controlling the masses of the people, you know what I mean? Not just here in the United States, but around the world. And to make sure that like people stay blind, deaf, and dumb, you know what I mean? Not just on, I didn't mean to say that as in a relationship to like disabilities, but keep people away from like knowing, having people not being able to speak about certain things and not having people be able to have a clear understanding of what's going on. So it's always been from the government solution is like put people in that look just like you, people that can talk the rhetoric, and from there, you know, get the movement to, you know what I mean, to be going like I think people used to say, you know, use the train analogy of like, we get on the train, you know what I mean, but we're trying to go to New York or something like that. They always trying to put you on a train going to like California or something like that. And so you get on the train, but it's not taking you to the place that you want to go to. And so we've been trying to keep people focused on the eyes on the prize and look at the direction that we're trying to go to. And, you know, we've been having to like eat a lot of shit and shine shoes, but we seeing that those days are starting to be over. Now is like, you know, all that shiny shoes and all that stuff, it's starting to be thrown out the window. And we're at a point in time where our solutions are going to be at the forefront and we're going to demand them. And that's the way, you know, that's the way it's going to be. And yeah, and you know, and people are coming along, and we want people to understand that like there's a lot of other stuff, but I could say, but I wanted to get other people a chance to chime in because yeah, it's a very, very big complex situation, and it's been a lot of different points in time throughout the years, you know what I mean, over the last few decades of learning from different people that are on the other side of the country, people that are in the southern part, people in the north Midwest, you know, just learning from other different peoples and seeing how their struggles are definitely interconnected that people here in Philadelphia are going through, and that's why we see that it's you know, and it's growing from a number of different reasons. And I think we just have to take the opportunity to see this growth and be able to have more become, you know what I mean, poor scholars, and understand that what things actually and the obvious, because most people always want to state the obvious. And this is like my thing, and it's just stuck in my head forever. You know what I mean? They always want you to be looking at something, you know what I mean, constantly, while they're doing all the tricks and all the underhand stuff. And you'll be like, oh, you know, out of Katrina, the laws came. Oh, out of this, after this pandemic, new laws are coming. After this curfew, like different things that people aren't looking at. They're looking at, you know, the tree, you know, and not really looking at the whole forest. And that's the thing that, you know, we're trying to keep people focused on, because it's not something that's easily done, because we're human. We have feelings, we hurt, you know what I mean? And we look for happiness. We look for a number of different things. And so sometimes we also get caught up not seeing some of the tricks. And so it's going to take brothers and sisters to constantly keep grappling with each other and making sure that we can keep our eyes focused on the prize. So I'll let someone else speak, because I don't want to talk all the time.
Thank you, Galen. Ooh, medicine. Cheri,
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for, you know, people that might watch this later or whatever, the Poor People's Economic Human Rights campaign actually came out of the work of another organization I started, the Kensington Welfare Rights Union.
Yeah.
And we, you know, it was a small group of welfare recipients. We were really big, and we took a bus tour around the country and formed an organization, a movement called the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. And like Galen said, you know, this whole process has been a learning process. And I blame my mother for giving me a very big heart and teaching me to trust people, because that's exactly what I did. You know, I just figured that this whole idea of having all these snakes around, well, snakes would actually be a better concept, but I can't think of it. But thinking of all these operatives who came in disguises, like social workers and students, and people that you know, made up that they were formerly homeless. I mean, it was just crazy. And that I know, you know, because I just trusted, I trusted people, we trusted people, that they would be doing all of this to create social control and to get us on a different train, going in the direction of social control, reform, and not revolution. And you know, it's very interesting how the split happened in the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. It's like all the poor people remained on the side of the poor and towards, you know, revolution. And then the, you know, some of the students and the fake people, they all went in the direction of reform. And one of the terrifying things that they did in the beginning was, you know, I used to hear unions talk about their shops being raided, right? Well, one of the first things that they did is they just, you know, they gathered all of our mailing list and our contacts, and they sent them out letters to different groups around the country. And then they began to marginalize and isolate us. and you know, say that we as an organization that had $1.95, that we were not managing those funds correctly. You know, whatever ways that they could possibly, you know, figure out ways to, you know, marginalize and isolate us. And, you know, we figured, okay, whatever, we're just going to keep doing our work. But we didn't think about the fact that they would end up on CNN, not PNN. They would end up with multi-million dollars in each of their various different organizations. I'm referring to the Poor People's Campaign, which is connected to the Kairos Center, that was helped to come into the world by Larry Cox from the Ford Foundation. Mm-hmm. And it says right on the front of the Kairos Foundation's site that, you know, their partners are the Ford Foundation and the Kairos Center, the Ford Foundation, and it lists the bank and other mega foundations. Well, we just figured, okay, well, we're going to leave them alone because they're just going to be over here on the other side of the world capturing people and having them get on the wrong train. And we're just going to focus over here trying to build the revolution and put an end to poverty, hunger, and homelessness because we're experiencing it. And we're the ones that are burying people and loved ones that we know. And we're the ones going without the food and the housing and all of these things. But then it became worse because then we started to notice things like we would go to our Wikipedia page and they would say we no longer exist, to go to the Poor People's Campaign. And then we would try and find old videos of ours and they have been taken off the web.
Oh my God.
You know, Skylight Pictures has stopped selling some of, you know, our videos. You know, and I just could go on and on and on. And of course, you know, what they say is that it's really, you know, our ego problems, and in particular, Cheri, Honkala, and my ego problem. But I really want to know how it is that a former white woman student came to just one day announce that she was heading up an organization called the Poor People's Campaign and had the ability to wipe out all the poor and homeless people that worked hard to found a multiracial movement led by the poor in this country and get away with it. There's something really wrong with it. And so, you know, even though we don't like it, we have to, you know, do the, you know, Galen calls it the ugly road, and we're on the ugly road right now. And that's not sexy, it's not fun. You know, we have to be the truth tellers. We have to be the protectors of history. We have to call out the names of the Lisa Richards and the Liz Ortizes and the Mary Luz Gonzalez and Elba Gonzalez and all of the other people that have actually been doing the work for decades.
Wow. That's like, I don't know. This is really painful every time I hear this story, and it seems to get worse. Who would like to speak next, Tara or
Liz or Bruce? Unmute yourself.
Tara, you can go next if you're there.
All right, I was muting myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Tara.
Hey, Tara.
Hey, how's everybody?
All right. Better now, seeing your beautiful self.
Thank
This is
you.
being recorded, Tara.
Okay. What? Do I look good?
It's better to not use the F-bombs, not that you do, but go ahead.
Well, I think Cheri and Galen both have a point of stating that, our work isn't the sexiest work. Our work isn't work done in an air-conditioned office, or at a air-conditioned conference. Our work is the work that's done out in the streets. Our work is what's done, in poor communities where they don't have the resources, and we do what we can to figure out or take back the resources.
Oh.
And it is sad that that they're co-opting our history, but they're also getting it wrong. Like they don't even present it in the correct manner either.
Wow.
Our timeline for a lot of us. I mean, I know Cheri has a wider timeline than some of us, but the timeline for Kensington Welfare Rights Union, if I'm not mistaken, starts 1990 or 1991, and then progressively in the 90s and the 2000s is where Kensington Welfare Rights Union, that then transitions into the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, does a lot of March of Our Lives. We go international. Our work, we start recording it ourselves. Unfortunately, leaving it in the wrong hands to be edited. They claim to be part of the movement and that they were trustworthy. It shouldn't matter whether they today agree with what our organization is doing or not. It's our footage. We literally took the footage.
Wow.
It's sad. They weren't even there. They weren't on the marches. We filmed it and we would send it to them. They weren't in the neighborhoods. We filmed it, then we would send it to them for them to edit the movies. If I'm not mistaken, same thing for Takeover, when they were filming Homeless Union and the organization that Cheri was a part of back in Minneapolis in the late 80s. Am I getting some of this history wrong? Am I correct on the timeline, Cheri?
You're correct, and that's a very good point. All of the footage, we had somebody inquire about the footage, and they say that we have to pay $1,000 a minute for the footage of ourselves.
Footage we took. Footage that we filmed.
Oh my God.
I can't emphasize that enough.
Wow.
They didn't come into the ghetto to film. They would let us film each other, and then we would send it back. Having Frank filming, at that time, he was part of our organization, not a part of Skylight Videos. So even though he became a filmmaker later on in life, he was an 18-year-old kid when he was part of the Kensington Welfare Rights Union filming, but to turn in the footage to Skylight Video, just like when I joined a couple years later, I was filming and turning in the footage to Skylight Video. And others in Kensington Welfare Rights Union, not just myself or Frank, a guy Junior too, Guerrilla Videos was his, I don't know, was it an organization, Cheri, or just a project of Kensington Welfare Rights Union? That I don't remember quite clearly. But Guerrilla Videos was a part of us, and they would send in the footage to Skylight. So none of this Skylight actually filmed themselves. And it's sad that they're charging us now for our lives, for documentation of our lives.
Wow.
But we're very lucky and fortunate to have literally 1,500 photographs by Harvey Finkel of housing takeovers, of everything that we've done for like the last 30 years. And Harvey did that for free. And he's never asked for a dime. And, he's a real revolutionary photographer that has been following us around for a very long time. But a lot of people that are watching this, they might not give a damn about any of these things, but I think that there's an important lesson here, something that I wish we had learned earlier from an organization called Insight, which was an African American women's organization that got money from the Ford Foundation, and then one day when everybody was standing on the rug, they pulled out the rug, and everybody in that organization had become dependent on those kinds of resources from the Ford Foundation. And so my advice to anybody that watches this, we're going in a direction in the society where we're clearly going to outnumber the rulers in this country. They're not going to the master is not going to give us money to dismantle their house. And so it's going to be really important that this whole mutual aid thing that some people think is like the new flavor of ice cream for the week, that all of us in poor communities have been doing forever. It's like the sexiest thing, and people are like, oh my God, you know, I'm gonna help pass out food or whatever. We have been passing out food since the day we were born. Out of necessity.
Thank you.
We have been housing people.
Thank you.
In abandoned houses and doing takeovers out of necessity for decades. And trust me, our takeovers are not going to end up on CNN. They are not going to end up, you know, being written about in Life magazine. Our hundreds and hundreds of jailings won't end up there either. So we have to tell our own stories and our own lessons.
That's right. Beautiful. Yeah, this is actually like and it's a horror story, really. This kind of, I have a lot to say, but okay, Bruce, do you want to throw down, comment?
And I think Liz, if Liz Ortiz is on here, I think it's important she says something as well, because she was here from the beginning of the Tangible Rights Union.
Is Liz here?
Liz, don't see.
Okay. Go ahead, Bruce.
Don't see her.
Well, let me start off with a couple things. I was educating one of their organizers actually today from Poor People's Campaign that had contacted me to try to get me involved in their supposed events coming up. Most of the people involved with them have no clue of the fraudulent behavior of the fundamental beginning organizers of Poor People's Campaign, including Liz Theo Harris, and especially including her. And I was involved for quite some time with Fight for 15 and Black Lives Matter, both of whom have been co-opted too to some extent. Black Lives Matter, though there's some amazing organic things going on with people using the moniker of Black Lives Matter. There's two strands of it. One of them, which was recently exposed by Ajamu Baraka, and I think also Black Agenda Report pointed this out, is getting $1.73 billion. That's with a B. That Black Lives Matter, unfortunately, is very deeply tied to the Democratic Party. The same is true with the two strands of Fight for 15. When I was involved with Fight for 15, the initial organizing of Poor People's Campaign, the fake Poor People's Campaign, and that's what I'm going to call it out as, they did it vis-a-vis through the Fight for 15. We were there, my wife Barbara and I, and some other PPERC members from Florida. I was involved at a national level with the clergy, and the clergy had a meeting with Reverend Barber and Liz announcing this plan to do this, which was about a few months before the 50th anniversary of the Poor People's Campaign, which was 2018. And immediately after that gathering, we went up and said, we hope that you're going to work with us at Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, since that is your roots. I directed it specifically to Liz. And there was a lot of glad handing and promises and saying that they were going to do this. It never happened. So there were multiple attempts, not just with people in Philly, but with myself and people in Florida. And this exactly was what was going on, was this already kind of trying to opportunistically bank on using the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's Poor People's Campaign that didn't see its complete fulfillment because he was assassinated by the state. And that they did have a Resurrection City, but it was, you know, not to the grandeur, I guess you could say, that it might have happened with Poor People's Campaign. Tara, you might want to mute, Tara. You might want to mute.
I thought I was muted. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So there was this going on, and then just to speak about the philanthro pimping of poor folks and oppressed classes, this is also happening within clergy and religious circles. And I came back from Minneapolis. I was up there for a little while, did some work with PPERC up there, but also stayed for a time at the corner of 38th and Chicago, renamed George Floyd Boulevard, where George Floyd was assassinated, murdered, and lynched. And let's be clear, it was a lynching, because a lynch means more than two people or more than one person, so a mob. And already religious groups were trying to come in and co-opt the revolutionary movement that was happening, and trying to pacify the movement. And let's remember that the graveyard of movements is the Democratic Party. So these forces were starting to come in there and try to co-opt what is happening now. And it's an amazing movement. Let me just say, in my own little town yesterday in Lewisburg, where we have 50% poverty rate and 1/3 unemployment and very diverse crowd, in southern Middle Tennessee, there was a anti-police brutality rally in our little town of 700 people.
Wow.
At this rally out of 14,000 in this community.
Wow.
So there's an amazing revolutionary movement going on. And it's clear in my mind, and all of our minds, I think, that the establishment is scared shitless.
Yeah.
And they are trying to do everything they can to undermine this. They started with using these anniversaries, such as I mentioned, the 50th anniversary of the Poor People's Campaign, to opportunistically, and that is a key word, opportunistically start these kinds of things and make them happen. And this is what happens all the time. It's almost like a trivializing of revolutionary movements. You know, today is the birthday of Che Guevara, and we saw how some of that has been trivialized. I got my little Che shirt on right now, but you know but that's the thing, we have to watch out for commodification of movements. And so now this fake Poor People's Campaign has all these trinkets and things that they're trying to merchandise off of poverty, not only pimping poor people to, you know, make their movement grow, but pimping, you know, a whole host of other situations. And if it's unclear to anybody at this point where the Poor People's Campaign, the fake one, stands, all you have to do is look at the fact that at the last Democratic convention, Reverend Barber was given a platform to speak. They do not let anybody speak at the Democratic convention that is not in bed with the Democrats.
That part.
So this is the reality that we're dealing with, and this is why we have to continue to organize and out grassroots. And it's tough because they have all the money and the resources, but we have the people that are really impacted. We are the only movement, and the same is true with my organization, Refuge Ministries, and all of the PPORG chapters across the country. We are the only movement that's informed, led, and organized by poor and homeless and formerly homeless oppressed classes.
Yeah.
This other fake movement, they'll have their little, pardon the way I'm describing it, I don't know how to put it any other way, dog and pony show that isn't based on reality, because none of the people at the top level have ever experienced poverty. They don't understand it in a real way.
Yeah.
I'm taking the
It's
mic.
vicarious. Anyway,
If she writes one more article, if I gotta say this, Bruce, if she writes one more article, I'm talking about the Reverend. Now, there's some touchy things I want to say out loud too, as a woman. I've never hid my history. I'm a former dancer, sex worker, welfare recipient, welfare mom, single mom, you name it. And it means the risk that we're taking right now by speaking out loud about these things is that we represent the undeserving, the bad, the ugly, poor. I'm saying this is versus the moral campaign talking about what is that they know what is right and wrong, and their slogan that they use all the time is fight poverty, not the poor. Fuck you. I'm sorry. No F-bomb.
Hey,
sorry.
I feel you, fam.
That was a mistake. That was a mistake. But the thing I want to say about that.
So, Cheri, what's the name of
we are
the organization that the Ford Foundation funds? The something center?
The former organization, the organization I was referring to, Insight.
Insight, yeah.
No. The where the money comes
right
from.
Kairos.
People.
Kairos.
Kairos. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is important that I say this as a woman, right? That is not going to work. I am not going to be quiet. I am not going to shut up. I am not going to be afraid. You are not going to hold my history in poverty against me or any other poor woman in this country. And I am so tired. Every single speech and book and everything that she is writing right now says, you know, the most important thing is that we hear from the poor. Well, they need to shut up, sit down, and put the mic down and let poor women speak for ourselves.
Oh, there you go. Wow. Okay. Leroy, did you want to comment, or because I got something to say, but.
Oh, no, you go, Danny.
I mean, first of all, I just want to make sure, because there's powerful Poor Magazine family on here too. I want to shout out to my brother Mutiado Silencio, to Pearl Lubungin, to Weston, who's actually, you know, helping us with our digital divided ghetto asses even do this. We love you, Weston. And the reason that, first of all, there's so much.
So much.
Right. First of all, I want to shout out to Crystal Rose Sanchez, who's one of these actual poor women who they've ensnared in their bullshit, who runs the homeless union in Sacramento. I know that, you know, they're doing a lot of, you know, they're parsing out some dollars, right, to poor people. Let's be real. How do you get poor people to work for you? Dollars and access, right? And it's really funny because what has happened, of course, poor women are doing badass work like they always do, right? But when me and Leroy went and actually spoke at one of their things, I mean, oh my God, we thought we were going to be killed on the way to the car. Like, it's like daggers. Oh, because they know where we at, fam. And Leroy tore them a new one. You'd love your brother, because they tried to have us, of course, us. That was a dopey mistake. But they tried to have us speak at one of their bullshit, rallies, whatever. And Leroy tore him a new one. It was like, we don't actually get down with y'all, and you need to come to one of our elephant circles. It was hilarious. And so anyway, we're just persona non grata with those fools. But I say all that to say, when you're talking about this woman, so let me just break down some shit for fellow poor family and for all y'all. Let's be real, and I think Bruce touched on this. They are making money, not just parsing out these blood-stained eugenicist dollars of the Ford FU Foundation, but they're making money selling yo shit. Like, actually, and that's called theft, right? And in anything else, even in a capitalist system, you get to, right? You get to patent your shit. But as poor people, we don't patent our mofo lives. Hello? As Tara brought up, we document, we fight, we put out, and then these fools with access, with the letters behind their name, or the Firelight Studios, or the FU Ford, whatever, or the clergy, they get to sell our shit, but without us. Now, that's straight up theft. And what troubles me so deeply is that rich people have been stealing poor people's shit forever. Forever. Rich people have been stealing and archiving indigenous people's shit and poor people's shit forever. And we're in a moment where, as Bruce pointed out, a lot of people aren't taking that shit no more. So I feel like this is, and that's one of the reasons me and Leroy said this is that moment to bring y'all on. Because let's start absolutely getting unified about how these rich people and middle class mofos and foundation, eugenicist foundation, can't keep stealing poor people's shit. Like, no, bro, no more. The buck stops here. Your blood-stained buck stops here. And I'm just really like, I just want to say that a whole lot. And I love you, Galen and Tara and Cheri and Bruce, and for nailing it. But I just want you to know we with you, because that can't happen. They're turning over Columbus's statues and unearthing indigenous bones that are in AKKdemia right now. They can't steal more poor people's shit.
On June 23rd, in 1968, the military, the National Guard, and the police came into Resurrection City and tore down the encampments of the original members of the Real Poor People's Campaign in 1968.
Wow.
And I just want to say, since we're on this new road of taking things back, that's why we're planning on the week of June 25th, on the day of June 25th, to go into the military recruiting offices in different parts of the country and demand reparations. And we want, we don't we understand that the taking of blood money from these big foundations and banks, we care just as much about what's happening to poor people, not just in this country, but around the world. We care. So it's not just, oh, you know, I'm going to do good things within the system to take this dirty money. People are dying here and they're dying abroad, and they're dying from the sanctions, and the sanctions here are the cutting off of general assistance and caring about COVID and caring about all of these things are preventable human rights violations, and they don't have to happen in this country. And so, yes, this period going forward is about us getting organized as an army. We don't care whose organizations, whatever. We need to get boots on the ground, and we need to organize to take back food, housing, land, all the basic necessities of life, and keep each other alive. And those that get in the way, we need to make wanted posters of. We need to put their faces up. We need to expose where the hell they're getting their money from. And, you know, nothing short of that. If we're serious about taking on the responsibility of helping to keep our brothers and sisters alive.
Ashe.
Okay, so Sandra has her hand up. Sandra? Can unmute yourself, Sandra.
Sarah, you're on mute.
Who is it, Leroy?
Sandra.
Oh.
You're on mute, Sandra.
Sandra Rivera Colon. Presente.
You're on mute.
Can we unmute?
Galen, you're on mute.
You want to say something? Mute?
No, can we unmute Sandra?
Yeah, I've been trying, but it's not going through. All right, I guess we can go on. We can come back to her after.
Anybody else has any other comments before we? I wanted to go back though, because I want to make sure we're running out of time, and I want to make sure that if there's any other comments, but also to say those dates and locations again, so people know there's a call out for taking back what's stolen from us, which we know is really the issue below. Anybody else has any comments, or did Sandra finally, we get her off of mute?
No, not yet.
I'll say something.
Go for it, babe.
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, I just keep saying it over and over and over in my head, because I want to kind of like keep myself in sharp, meaning, you know, steel sharpens steel. So it's going to need other people to be just as sharp to be able to keep sharpening us. And that's, you know, when, you know, the ruling class, you know what I mean, they have all the researchers, they have tons of resources and a number of different things. So they make their plans, you know what I mean, for different levels on different things, some in 5 years, some in 10 years, some in 50 years. They have these plans that are out there. And I think that we just can't look at the obvious thing that's always being put out there to have us move and react, and not allowing ourselves to be prepared for some of the different things that are coming. Because people are, you know, I have friends, family, and a number of people that, you know, everything is around the pandemic, you know what I mean? Like everything is stressful. Like you say anything, oh, you got the kids right there, pandemic. Everything, they changing their whole life because they're looking at the pandemic. But they don't look at the overall big picture what the pandemic has been causing. They've been allowing the bosses, you know what I mean, to keep making, you know, CEOs to keep making millions and millions of dollars, some of them billions, and without, you know, people coming to work. They've been able to, like, keep, the masses of the people, you know what I mean? What's that? What is it like when you go to the dentist and they give you the Novocaine and stuff like that, so they can pull your teeth out. They've been given,
yeah,
with the $1,200, the stimulus, you know what I mean, the extra food stamps, you know what I mean, all the different things that people are like kind of like being passive with, and being like having their mind distracted from some of the new things that are coming down the pike in relationship to trying to control the population in relationship to whether it be all right out straight up police state with martial law in place, or if it's a soft one, you know what I mean, to try to see how people react. A number of different things that they're trying to do, even in relationship to the whole race thing. They've been doing this thing since they've been using light-skinned blacks, you know what I mean, to go against dark-skinned blacks doing slavery time. They always try to figure out some way to have you divided on different issues, so you spend most of the time talking about it. And I remember one of the things that we used to always say in the Kensington Welfare Rights Union, and what we didn't really want people to do, is just like choose the narrative, and have us, when they choose the narrative, we'll be sitting back discussing the pandemic and race relationships forever and a day. And the whole time capitalism is burning themselves out, and they have a plan, for the aftermath.
yeah.
And we should be looking at how we're going to be able to survive. Is it going to be where it's going to be something cooperative, where the masses of the people are going to be able to, live a decent life and thrive? Or is it going to be a police state where, us poor righteous teachers are going to be like underground trying to figure out how to make a change? And so it's something that, we have to keep in mind when we're fighting, because the fights around feeding and clothing and housing people, that has to keep constantly going on every day, because that do bring new leaders around, that bring more people into the army. But as we bring these people into the army, we have to have an advanced education, that's more on the lines of, stuff that they say in the hood all the time. This is chess, not checkers, because if they make a move, then we try to counter and jump that move. Then they just jump us. That's how checkers work. But in relationship to chess, people know that people are looking 7, 8 moves in advance. So when you make that one move, whether you go that way or that way, they already know the outcome based on what their plans already are. And that's what we got to start doing in it. It's not just going to be something that we're just going to snap and do overnight. It's going to be something that, we really have to, keep on top of each other, and making sure that as we do our daily stuff and our daily striving and trying to make things better, that we also keep looking and saying, like, that's a real true enemy over there. And we have to call them out, and they have a plan. No matter what we try to do to shape this into a revolutionary form where we live in a cooperative society, they have a plan to try to stop that. And we have to keep that in mind.
Oh, that's what's up.
Also, can I?
Hey,
Yeah, go for it. Beautifully said.
Yes, and thank you for making this connection, brother. Again, as Homefulness and Poor Magazine, we've been doing the clothing, the feeding 8 years before this pandemic hit. Again, coming out of poverty, coming out of struggle, being there ourselves. At the same time, it's crazy because I think my sister Tiny was talking about this too, that unfortunately, which is a beautiful thing of the uprising that is happening, where Black and brown folks have come out in support against the police brutality that's happening. But unfortunately, even some of the allies, some of the white upper middle class allies don't want to see, again, our folks being killed, but they will be okay having houseless people living on the sidewalk, walking over them, and even die. It's okay if they die within the time, and they don't see that as a brutality, as someone's life being also taken by the same system that the police is being born out of, right? And so the disconnection too, how we can't focus on that because we're only focused on police brutality. We can't do nothing about our houseless brothers and sisters. That's not what we're here for in this rally. Again, that bullshit separation, even though these, these booties are present in all of us. And at the same time, the beautiful thing that we've seen over here, again, Poor Magazine, when this whole pandemic started, we actually started doing more because we knew the need that our folks had, even in this pandemic, that some of these well-funded nonprofits, they closed. They closed. Everybody went home to their families, obviously because it's a career for them. And forget who's doing the feeding and the clothing and for who supposedly they were advocating before they had it closed. Which again, we saw these beautifulness of a lot of grassroots, underfunded like ourselves who don't get no foundation money, who were putting our pennies together to be able to do our feeding, to be able to do what we do because we know it's important this time. But at the same time, I'm not saying, wait a minute, these people in City Hall and all these nonprofits getting millions of dollars to do the work that we're doing, putting our pennies together. And for me, it's also, how do we also demand that? Like, yo, you're not doing your job, then at least support grassroots movement, grassroots organization who are doing the work on the ground.
Oh, beautiful said.
Leroy.
I want to call out Israel Munoz, also here from Poor, one of the radical redistributors on the front line with myself and Motiado and so many more. Go ahead, Leroy.
So we know that these institutions are crumbling, which is a good thing, because they've been trying so many different ways to cut off our legs, but we keep on growing.
Oh.
So it's a really good thing that that they are scrambling now. I mean, the Ford Foundation keeps on calling me, keeps on trying to get me in the rings because they know that our work is more powerful than what they have. And they want it so bad, So we
absolutely.
We just need to keep on doing the work and telling them to F off,
Yeah.
Because they want it so bad.
But see, I do want to bring out, again, for people who maybe see this in the future, and I appreciate that we really understand this as a lesson, in the same way that the Insight book, this is our live lesson, this is a Poverty Scholars lesson to other movement builders. Like Cheri said in the beginning, and I think Galen touched on this as well, you guys had an open heart. You invited these people in because they said they wanted to learn about you. I put that in air quotes because it's one of the reasons Poor Magazine does People School. And I just want to say this to anybody who might watch this. We teach fellow poverty scholars, but more importantly, we don't share with folks with race and class privilege unless they understand and overstand that they're in a school to learn how to degentrify and decolonize their minds. Because we know they'll just rip us off as quick as look at us. And that
word.
Right? And that horrible thing that Tara talked about the people stealing the documentation. That's media. There's some whores out there, right? And I hate to say it, Tara, but that's how they move, right? And so it's almost like there's these two battles in a way, right? As poverty scholars who on some level are loving, we're not some level, we are loving people who are always trying to figure out how to help and because that's what we've had to do since our birth, right? As Cheri, you point out. But there's also this way in which we need to also hold our stuff, right? And realize that our spirit and our realness is a commodity to those people. And so, you know, when Leroy says no to that money and says, I'll survive on my SSI dollars. And, you know, and they got us down as like, you know, I think they got me down as the most dangerous human being in the world. So they didn't even try to give me money. But that said, part of our job as poverty scholars is to own our shit, right? And I want to lift that up. Yeah. We love every single time I can. I teach those Poor People's Armies folks about you all. I let them know that they can't wash this history because they're not trying to. They're other poor people, right? They're like, wow, I didn't even know that. And I just want you all to know that that's part of the work too. Is that we have to own, and one of my sayings is, intellectual property is the only property us poor people have. So no, you don't get to rip us off.
Yeah, I wanted to say just a good thing, because we all know after this election, that campaign's gonna be gone. Because foundations eat themselves. They eat themselves.
That part.
The job opportunity people will leave.
Yeah.
The people that are in there for a job, for campaigning, yeah. they all gonna lose their money, Leroy.
Yeah, they are. After the election, there's gonna be no campaign, and we're gonna keep on doing our work. So
that part. So
for sure.
Can you guys repeat again the date and the call out, because we're gonna have to close out?
Yes, June 23rd. Hit any Army, Navy, recruiting office, whatever. Set up a table outside. If people want to elevate it, we're going to be elevating it here in Philadelphia. We're going in to demand our 67 cents out of every dollar.
And then what is that? Tell us what that amount is used for. Is that where the military is taken?
Yes, the military takes 67 cents out of every dollar. And while people are focusing on defunding the police department, we want to do away with the military. We want them out of different countries. We want to bring the money home. People are dying here now in this country, black and brown especially, from the virus. These are all preventable deaths. The people care about black and brown lives. They're going to reclaim those 67 cents.
Ashe. All right. I'm excited. That sounds beautiful. Okay. And also for people to know, our How to Not Call Police Ever workshop will be in July, and we'll be posting the date as soon as we get to be in the next. Anything else before we close out?
Join us at opening day of the Democratic National Convention. Socially distancing action. We cannot let them get away with being cutting off the livelihood of poor and homeless people in this country and around the world. Yeah, either the Democratic or the Republican convention.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will be doing the Republican convention protest now in Jacksonville, Florida. They're back in Florida again. They moved it to Florida. And we have an organizing call Thursday night for anyone. Just contact me. Thank you.
And both of the white men want to get more funding for police. So yeah.
All right, Leroy, take it away.
So yeah. So that's for Press book online. You can get it at poorpress.net. So thank you for tuning in, and we will be back at this time next Sunday with a closes us out, huh? Well, anyway, plug for Poor People's
Hey, Leroy's tired.
No. Survival Guide as well. Remember to check out the Poor People's Survival Guide through COVID-19 and the virus of poverty, which you can get on a sliding scale starting with $2 billion or more at poorpress.net, and stay tuned for our upcoming How to Never Call the Police workshop and to subscribe to our YouTube page. Peace.
Yeah, and also the beautiful Cheri and all the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign work, a lot of it is in that Poor People Survival Guide through COVID-19 and the virus of poverty. So yeah, get yourself a copy because they start at 0. That's how poor people organize our media. Hello. All right, family, we love you. People, check this out. It will be on our YouTube channel, Poor News Network. And you know how much Poor Magazine loves Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign.
No
We'll
doubt.
see you guys very soon.
Hey, don't forget to use your mask and gloves everywhere you go.
That's right.
Love y'all too.
One last thing, when we post this, we might get a whole lot of watchers and a whole lot of comments. So let's stay alert to respond to those comments.
Most F, you know we got you, fam. We got you. We got you, Cheri. All right, family. See you soon.